Linda, welcome back.
Welcome. How you doing, Sam?
I am better than I deserve. How about you?
I'm doing fabulous, and we are excited to be here today with our guest Julie Federico. And Julie has a special place in my heart. She is the woman that is the reason that I'm still on this planet. She was with me when I had my aortic dissection, and her calm, cool head got me the help I needed right away. And because of her, I'm still alive today. And she's a brilliant photographer. She's an author. She just retired from being a school counselor, and she's doing amazing things out in the world. So, Julie, welcome to Balancing Act.
Thank you, Sam and Linda, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome.
So you read public school counselor, huh?
Uh-huh.
Oh, my.
Middle school, I think, right?
I was at middle school, then I moved to the high school about, I don't know, maybe 9 years ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've written several books.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the books and the topics and what's near and dear to your heart?
So when they say you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Right.
And that's the way I feel when I work on this. I work constantly. So I'm a prevention expert. I help parents with difficult topics, breaking down difficult topics to have conversations with toddlers about domestic violence, child abuse, school violence, friendship, and race relations. I must have the mind of a 2-year-old because I write books for children 0 to 9 years old. So I take an adult topic and I demystify it, and none of my work is scary. No one ever has said you frightened my children, but I hit the nail on the head every time, and it's kind of a God-given act. I've never had any classes in writing or photography. Both of those things were just handed to me by God. So I hope to use them more in the next phase of my life.
Cool. So, just the topics that you mentioned there are really hot topics today. They are all the time, but today in our society, the way things are going and everything else, how do you the topic that really intrigued me, well, too, the abuse, and then the race. How do you break that down for a child to understand? I mean, basically, they don't have a preconceived idea at a very young age.
No. Basically, I have to tell you how I wasn't going to write another book. I was done at this point. I was done. And then we were cleaning up graffiti that had taken place down at the city and capitol downtown. And we were there with my church, and the pastor prayed for us before we took away with the graffiti. And this is what he said. He said, God made me black because he is creative. And he said that in a prayer. And I'm like, that is a stroke of genius.
Wow.
This was in an intentional race that God created. And no one had ever said that to me.
Yeah.
And so my book is called God Made Me Black because he is creative. I work in the public schools. I knew they would never buy it. So I wrote 2 called Blackness is Creativeness. It's the same book with a different title because of people don't like God. And my message is important whether you like God or not.
Right.
But
absolutely.
I got started on this. The theme of the book is Black is something to be honored. Black is not bad. Our culture thinks that Black is bad. Bad is the criminal. And the book just says, we're all the same. We're all made in the image of God.
Mm-hmm.
God intentionally made Black people and brown people and people of color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was by design, not by a mistake.
So do you get any pushback from any segment of society?
Some people don't like it.
Well, yeah.
And I was very scared when I wrote it. Of all the ones I wrote, this is the most loaded topic, I think, because I didn't talk. So I'm talking to preschoolers, keep this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I said in the back, I have a note in the back and said, I intentionally did not mention mass incarceration or systemic racism. Do you know what I mean? Those were topics I left out of the book. So people read the book and they're like, you didn't say anything. And I'm like, yeah, that was intentional. This is a child's first book on race relations.
Mm-hmm.
When you're first introducing a topic to a child, you don't give them all the pieces. Maybe you give them 2 until they can get older. Like after 9, you're not going to want to read my book. as a middle schooler, you would not read my book. My book is the tip of the iceberg, and it's just to open dialogue. I think parents need to be talking about race with their kids.
Yes.
You learn racism. You learn it from your parents.
Yes. Yes,
So
you do.
no one is born a racist, which I find fascinating how our culture can make you into a racist. Through no
And it doesn't
schooling,
take long.
no formal classes are offered. It just
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Yeah.
And it usually happens, I think, around the dinner table. It's us and them. And those conversations start early. So I'm just opening the door for parents. There's a ton more that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a whole bunch of books on this. But this is just the very beginning. But some people hate it. And some people said, why are you reading about race when you're white? So I got that going for me. And I can't act like I'm Black because I'm really not. So
But you're not blind either.
Yeah.
Julie Federico, they probably know that I'm not a person of color. I would have liked to have just handed this to my pastor and have him write it because he's Black, but he was retiring and he doesn't want to write. He's over, he's done. So he probably would have got a better market than me, having his picture on the back of the book.
Yeah.
It immediately is sanctioned or somehow okay if he's saying it, which is kind of weird. But anyway.
Well, and you're right, and that's where the children need to understand. You know, that the conversation has to start at an early age, and that is so spot on. And it doesn't have to be in depth; it just has to be. I like that concept. From what your pastor said, that's just perfect. It's a perfect way to start the conversation. And
Well, and
I think that
you can't talk to a 9-year-old and say words like systemic, even if you explain what that is beyond the level of understanding for them.
Correct.
So then they don't get anything because they're trying to figure that part out. Well, I get this, but I don't understand this, and they're stuck over here.
Yep.
And Julie's books are they're amazing.
Thank you.
They're written at the right level. And that in itself is a gift.
It is a gift. And that was a God-given gift. So my first book I wrote, my first draft was my last draft. The first publisher I sent it to picked up my book. And at this point, I'm not an author. I haven't written anything. I'm a middle school counselor in Denver, Colorado. They didn't pick it up because I'm such a great author. They saw dollar signs. As a publisher, they're like, no one in the world is talking to babies about abuse. So even if she's bad, she's good because there's nothing else out there on the market for little people. And it has done very well. For a while, it was number 3 on Amazon, and I was just over the moon. I want to save as many children as possible. So each time I work on that book, I feel like I'm throwing out life preservers to kids. And it seems like each time I log into my email to start work, there's a headline on MSN that someone's getting abused. And I'm like, I can't work fast enough. I want to meet a tech guy or tech girl because I'm not tech savvy. I've been in the public schools my whole life. We didn't have technology till 2000. I have not reached my threshold of wideness yet. And there's a lot more I could do. And I might take some tech classes and try to do it on my own. But I could have a much wider reach. The book is in Spanish and English. So it goes pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. Linda, we need to hook her up with Richard and have him help her get that wide. These are topics, you touched on the race side of it, and then your first book was on abuse, and that conversation needs to happen at an early age so that it can stop stuff from further on down the line. And I obviously haven't read the book, and I will get them and read them because I have a 3.5-year-old in the house right now.
Do you?
My grandson is here, and I have a great grandchild on the way. So, and you didn't talk about these things when I was raising my kids.
No.
No. You didn't even acknowledge.
No.
Yeah.
My parents didn't talk about anything. Yeah. I'll send you an ebook and you can start reading it tonight with them. Yeah.
That sounds good. Yeah.
It's very, go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Awareness, even at a young age, can stop abuse. It can stop the racism. It can stop the hurt. And especially when it's obviously has been written from a God-given point of view, whether people agree with that or not, you know, from what I'm gathering, an atheist could read your book and understand that this is the conversation that we have to have about race, right? And that is a God-given talent. I mean, just that's the impression I'm getting from you, Julie. I'm really excited about this because, like I said, I have a 3.5-year-old in the house now,
Yeah.
and I know these conversations have to happen, right?
I know, but you don't know how to do it. No one's got
Right.
any training on this. The thing about child abuse, if you say nothing, your children will say nothing if they're harmed.
Right. Exactly.
If you say something, even if you mess up and say something, you're giving them permission to tell. So I tell parents to just jump in with both feet and start talking. I put a lot of YouTube videos out. I'm like, if you don't know what to say, play my video.
Yeah.
I was offering people to Zoom with families, and I would sit down with your kids and I would talk to them. No one's taken me up on that yet. But parents don't know what to say, so they say nothing. And then the more I do this work, the more I'm learning so many parents were traumatized as children and victimized, and they never told anyone. So this issue is a huge trigger for parents. And I need to probably write something on how to demystify or de-stress yourself to have this conversation, because it's loaded. And a lot of parents are hurting.
But I will tell you, it took me over 50 years from the time of the abuse to admit publicly that I'd been abused.
Yes, that's normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it shouldn't happen, but it does. And Julie, how do we teach parents and people in the position of authority to listen to what the kids are saying and to understand? Because at 4 or 5 years old, they don't make stuff up.
No, they don't.
They don't have the ability to do that.
Well, that's a real hard question to answer. So this is kind of dark, but some case scenarios, mom's living with the boyfriend's helping her make rent. Daughter comes and says, your boyfriend is coming on to me. And she says, that's not happening. And she says it because of financial issues. So she kicks the boyfriend out. They possibly get evicted. Then you know what that's like to be homeless with 2 children. Then your children get taken from you. So a lot of women suppress the information for financial reasons because they can't make it on their own. And I did a podcast for a while, and I was interviewing the district attorney of Denver, and she said, we are starting to prosecute those women. And I said, thank you very much. I mean, it breaks my heart that women still earn less than men, and you have to stay and live with someone who's abusing your daughter to make rent. I mean, I would never do that, because I know the fallout when that girl's a teenager. You're going to need the National Guard at your house, and they're not cheap. So when you say listening, Linda, I think women listen, but they listen, some of them, and this is not everyone. They listen and suppress the information. Or it's grandfather or someone they've known since high school, and people can't believe that someone so close to you could be so awful. 90% of kids who are raped by someone they know. And every time I say that, a shiver goes down my arm, because that means as a parent, you introduced your child to the rapist. And
someone they not only know, but trust.
Correct.
And if they wonder why kids don't trust people.
Right. It's very hard when it's someone in your family. You know, the news goes crazy when someone's abducted in a Walmart. That's 1 out of 10.
Right. Right.
I've been doing this work for 17 years, and I only met one person who was attacked by a stranger. It was horrific. They broke in her window at her house while she was sleeping. That's one. I've heard a million. Mom's boyfriend is the biggest perpetrator. Uncles, cousins, babysitters, grandfathers, stepdads.
People trusted.
But even nannies. I sat in on one guy's talk. He was assaulted by a nanny for 8 years, and he took it to court and won. This was 20 years after the assault. So it can be a female, it can be a male. Basically, child abuse is anyone who has access to your child. So I encourage parents to make a list of everyone who has access to your child. You show that list to your little kid, and you say, if anyone on this list harms you, I want to know as soon as humanly possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That means your child is assaulted once. Once is preferable to years and years
Right.
and years. You cannot undo that harm. You
Yeah.
just can't. And those scars will stay with you for the rest of your natural life. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
It never goes away.
It doesn't. Do
And
you, how do you introduce that topic to families?
So some people, it's either all or nothing. Do you know what I mean? People say, I think you're a genius, what you're doing. Some people, when I first told them I was writing a book, they said, what's your book on? I said, child abuse prevention. They looked at me like this. And I'm like, wait, I'm not the perpetrator. I'm writing on prevention.
Right.
Some people won't even read my material.
Really?
You know, that doesn't happen in our house. We're Christians.
Right.
We're Republicans, whatever your tagline is.
Right.
You know, we're from the South. We're from the North.
Yeah.
We don't have that problem here. Some parents won't even read my material.
Mm-hmm.
The child advocacy centers love me, and that's where I'm trying to widen my reach, because they buy my books in large quantities. As this younger generation becomes parents, I think I'm going to be very successful, because
Yeah.
I know from working at the school, these kids talk about everything, and I mean everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When
Have
you
you expanded your teaching and your books into like local churches and synagogues and stuff like that? Or how well is it accepted?
I've never done anything at a church. A
Well-
lot of churches don't want to talk about this. You know, I do better in public schools and with young mothers and with child advocacy centers, therapists, play therapists, psychologists. That's kind of my niche. A lot of people just find me on Amazon by Googling body safety books.
Okay.
But I haven't tried real hard with churches. I asked my church when I got copies of the book if I could sit out after church and give away copies for free. So I had a misprint in my first book of God May Be Black because He's Creative. It was one page off. So you could still read this book and understand it. But I was going to give away all those for free. And they wouldn't. And I said, your pastor gave me the idea for this book, so I'm connected to your church. They wouldn't let me give away books for free. So I'm like, all right. You know, when something's not working, I move in another direction because so much is working. Yeah. I'm not going to waste my time with you if you don't want to hear it. Right, maybe God will save you. I don't know. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on a pastoral role and from the abuse side and from the race side and how to educate our children. I mean, we're doing VBS this week at our church, and so this is a time where little ones are introduced to people in authority that they should trust, and if they don't know how to talk, and if the people in charge don't know how to listen and what to listen for, I mean, this to me sounds like a great training tool for student and child leaders.
I would love to talk to a room of pastors. I think that would be amazing.
I might be able to set one of those up for you.
It would be amazing, but it's hard for them to hear this because I'm not about destroying families. That's not my agenda.
Right.
But when you have a relationship with a father, the Christian father is sexually assaulting your 4-year-old, I'm going to tell that woman to get out.
Absolutely.
I am not going to read the Bible that God doesn't love divorce. I'm going to say, get out, or you're going to have a mountain of trouble when they're older, and all of their relationships with men for the rest of their life will be impacted. Do you want to do that?
Yep.
I'm not talking divorce. I'm talking separation. I'm talking get the perpetrator out of your house.
Yeah.
If you don't have to get divorced, you can stay married as long as you want, but you need to get your child to safety.
Yes,
if you can't make the partner leave, then you send your child to a cousin, an auntie, a best friend. Maybe someone from church could step in and get them to safety is all I'm saying. So some pastors would say, Julie, you're too radical. I don't know what you all do here in Denver, but we're about monogamy in the church. I'm like, that's great. You can be about monogamy, but I don't think
monogamy has to do with anything.
Yeah.
What breaking up a marriage? I mean, like ending in divorce. You know, I don't know. I am confident enough. I wouldn't care if the pastors were screaming at me. I mean, I have so much information. I would just say, God bless you.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's the approach you have to take to it. But I know several pastors in my area, and I will talk to my senior pastor and bring this up, mainly because I can tell. Well, I know a lot of facts around a lot of people in the church, and I think this is something that our church in particular would be interested in, just for the record, to be able to recognize, especially on the abuse side. I think we're a well-blended church. We're very diverse, but still, these kids get the race card in school.
Yes.
And so to start that conversation early. But this is, Julie, this is just fascinating information for me. I really, and what is your website, Julie?
www.juliefederico.com.
Okay. And folks can buy your books there and reach out to you there.
You can call me there. My email's on there. If you want me to come talk to your Girl Scout, Boy Scout group, church group, I'd love to talk to a room of pregnant women. That to me sounds like Christmas morning, because I know your kid has not been harmed yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And so do you do in person and virtual?
I do.
Okay. So we're running out of time here. I think Linda, we may just have to have Julie back and talk some more.
I believe so. She's got a lot to share, and
I do.
This is a wonderful community, and I think any of you watching, if you have a need for this, if you know of a group that needs to talk with Julie and listen to what she's got to offer, reach out to Julie through her website and get in touch with her. Let's spread the word so it's not needed anymore.
Correct.
Right,
I want to make child abuse, I want to make this a public health issue, not child abuse. It's still in a dark corner. This is a public health issue. When you ride in a car, you wear a seatbelt. When you ride a bike, you wear a helmet. If someone touches you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, you tell a trusted adult.
Yes.
Prevention is fun and easy. And I always say at the end of my talks, come join me on this prevention ride. You will have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Julie, you have an event coming up that you're going to be a panelist on. Is that correct? Could you tell us quickly about that?
Yes. The Johns Hopkins Medical Center in Washington, D.C. is hosting a child abuse conference with the Moore Center. And I am honored to be a panelist with 4 other authors who write about child abuse prevention. Some of them talk about pornography. Some of them talk about online predators. And we are going to just be interviewed by a lady who works for Darkness into Light. That's another agency. And she's just going to interview us. And the topic is how literature can impact children's lives in a positive way.
Wow. Okay.
So, every night most parents read to their kid. Why don't you read something that's going to be, with an agenda, a positive agenda?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you'll folks, if you're listening, you can find the link to that conference in the show notes.
It'll be,
and reach out to. Is that information on your website also, Julie?
No, it's not yet, but I will get it up there. So if you Google, or I'm going to send Linda a link if anyone wants to join virtually, or if you're in DC, come out. It's June 25th and 26th. The amount of intelligence at this conference is going to be phenomenal. They have some phenomenal speakers, and they are just widening the net to try to solve this problem with more people.
Awesome.
They're trying to partner with agencies and different organizations.
You do awesome work, Julie. Thank you so much for what you do for our children. It's greatly appreciated. Congratulations on retirement.
Thank you.
Even though it sounds like you're going to be busier than you were when you were working full time, and that's good. It's a great cause. Thank you again, Julie, so much for being here.
Thank you. I've enjoyed.
See you next week.
We'll see you all next week.